Hey everyone, welcome back to CryptoCache. Thank you so much for joining me here. Hope you're having an amazing day. We're going to take another look at Bitcoin. Hopefully we can understand a little bit more about what's going to happen next. By just looking at the previous data, obviously, that's kind of the whole point of this. So I hope you can learn something, of course, as well. I love teaching people how to trade. I have a trading community as well as a trading academy. Check that out. Link in the description below. It's actually CryptoCache.tech as the website. It's still under construction, but the membership section is there where you can actually access the trading academy and effectively, become a member if you want to, join into my swing trade, my day trades. I send out signals as well as, of course, just the fact that you can interact with my community. Amazing group of folks there. Thank you all so much for being just truly awesome people, right? You're just great. I deeply appreciate you, and I look forward to helping you out if you decide you want to join. So to jump into Bitcoin here, kind of what's going on. Obviously, we're going to look at the standard stuff, but to summarize from yesterday, we kind of expected the price to come down, and it did, right? Just based on the fact that it continued kind of with this plateau here, right around 38,800, couldn't go any higher. So with that being said, again, it's moving the way that we want it to, but the next 24, 48 hours could be, there's a couple scenarios I feel might happen, and we'll look at that here in a shorter time frame, but generally speaking, the 50-day simple moving average is still working its way down. We're not going to have to worry about that for a little while. So moving averages are really almost irrelevant for the moment, right? They're both above, still considered resistance. We've got this RSI here as well that's working its way back down. So it's kind of working its way down this little trend line here. So when it broke above, all well and good, but kind of a false positive, as we've seen a lot. Bitcoin has been a dead cat king recently in the last 2 to 3 months, just continues to push up and drop like a rock. So we just kind of got to get used to it. We kind of got to expect that until the bottom happens. I do feel like we might see one more bottom closer to 33,000, but that's just speculation, of course, based on Bitcoin, essentially being really good at double bottoms. So that's just kind of my thought process there, but we'll see how we get there. I feel like it's still a reality. Plus, the market conditions are not phenomenal either. A lot of that stuff factors in, so hopefully you can pay attention to the traditional stock market because that does factor in. But all that stuff aside, RSI is moving its way back down to 30. Now, is it going to go below 30? Possibly, but we'll have to wait and see. It could just come down close to 30 and kind of just hang out there. It's less common for the price to come under 30. I mean, you only see that on extreme drops. We saw that back in May, of course, May 19th, which was terrible, and obviously here recently in January. But generally speaking, with the RSI being as low as it is, the common thought process is for the price to increase when it gets that low, right? So we're still not at the lowest point. So keep that in mind. It could definitely go lower. So try not to let that be your only motivator for, taking entry, because that's, on the big picture, yes, eventually it'll work out, right? Months, years down the road, obviously this will be a low point. But for right now, the likelihood of it going lower is fairly high just because we haven't officially broken this trend line, right? So yes, we saw it broke above one day. I told you to be cautious and careful with that too, right? And it's back down underneath again. It's another one of those dead cats that we're expecting. Granted, we saw an 8 on TD sequential, and it makes sense that the price came down. That's kind of what helped give me the inclination to want to take a short position with our community and take those profits as we have with Bitcoin and Ethereum. But on the same accord, right now, the way things are transitioning, we still don't have that vote of confidence that Bitcoin has broken free from any type of trend line, and that's something we need to kind of just remember, keep that in the forefront of your memory, right? So, if a dog bites you once, it'll bite you again, right? Bitcoin has done that literally 3 months straight. So just don't be surprised if the price comes down again, because it's probably going to, just based on just trend lines alone. All right, so enough about that. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the 4-hour chart. Let's go ahead and look at that. This is the midterm. This kind of tells us when there's a shift in momentum. This is kind of another thing that helps me understand the shift we saw recently. In other words, with the price kind of coming up here and getting stopped out multiple times with large candle wicks, right around 38,800, you could see a lot of selling pressure, essentially. Anytime the price tried to come up, it got rejected down almost instantly. So, we got to kind of keep that in mind. That's a big part of it. It was also, too, recently here as well, whereas the price was just kind of tapering off on the RSI. That's never a good sign as well, kind of telling us that we're losing that momentum, right? That strength. The relative strength was declining. Okay. And then obviously we had the MACD divergence, of course, that was just before that started to occur just before the shelf here. So there's a few things that kind of signaled that on the 4-hour chart, but generally speaking, the midterm here tells us we're still more bearish. We're now under the 50-day SMA, and that is effectively going to work as a potential resistance. Now, I say potential, and again, I don't know if you got my video from yesterday, but generally speaking, 50 on the RSI has a tendency, 50 on the SMA, the 50-day simple moving average, has a tendency of working as a strong support and or a strong resistance. So you can see right there, anytime it breaks above or breaks below, the price usually stays there for some time. So for us to be kind of naive in the sense that the price is just going to shoot right back up over 50, it is naive, right? That is essentially a bad thought process. So try not to just, kind of be a gambling person, right? And just think that it's going to reverse because you have that feeling. Well, gut feelings happen over time. If you've been trading for 15, 16 years like myself, then you can get gut feelings. But if you're new to the industry, I can assure you that you need to use due diligence and make sure you look at a lot of different time frames and identify what works best for you and develop that skill set, right? That's the whole point of me having my trading community and my channel, is to help you get there faster. That's what my trading academy does. But generally speaking, at this point, again, the moving averages, we got to respect the fact that the 50 is above the price action right now, and it may get tested here in the near future, next couple of days perhaps. But until then, it's considered to be a resistance, and we should expect the price to stay below it. Now, what could happen? There's a couple of different scenarios here. Let me just go ahead and pull this up here based on what we see. Just looking at the shape and the pattern that's occurring, we could be seeing a head and shoulders pattern forming right now, right? We could see the price come up and then back down. So I know it's a terrible illustration of a head and shoulders, but that's essentially what happens. That second shoulder essentially is going to be formed here soon. Again, potentially, they don't always come to fruition, but they can, and they do often. So with the fact that this is kind of test these major support levels, right here at about 37,000 a couple of times, and getting rejected these key level resistances, there's a good chance the price could come back up if it were to closer to about 38,200. There's a chance of that. I think that's less likely considering the overall momentum and the way that things are shifting here for Bitcoin. We had 8 days of continuation to the upside, and I think we're going to see a few more days worth of continuation to the downside. It's almost an inevitability based on the fact that it got rejected so hard at 38,800. So again, possible scenario number one is head and shoulders, right? Sorry, that second shoulder is terrible. But you get the idea, right? It kind of comes across, it's going to meet somewhere in that range. So I think that's my speculation, is that if we're going to see the price come back up, we shouldn't see anything higher than 38,000. I think it should be 38, 38.2 at tops, and then it'll come back down even lower. But that's potential option number one. The second other potential, of course, would be for the price just to continue down as it has continued to do so far. So we got the shelf right here. We could see another shelf, another couple of days. Price comes down, probably even next 12 to 24 hours. I'm interested to see what the market's going to do here in the near future once the market closes today. So a lot of times when the market closes, you will see that shelf, that drop, so to speak, when the traditional US stock market comes to a head, and then, whatever profits were taken throughout the day need to be completely closed. Those positions, those day trades are closed by industry leaders, and the price goes down with the traditional market, and Bitcoin follows, right? So there's a handful of little things you can kind of think about, but I think it's much more realistic to expect the price to kind of continue to progress down, to stay underneath the 50-day simple moving average in the near future, and to obviously be able to have some kind of continuation of the downside. I think 35.5 will be tested sooner than 40,000. That's just my personal opinion. Again, it's not showing any strength. There's a lot of selling pressure at about 38.8, and obviously previously as well, right around 38.5. So, that being said, we got to kind of respect that. And I'm venturing to guess that the volume accumulation is really close. Yep. If we kind of just go with this most recent time frame here, we can see the most amount of volume is right where the price is at. So, again, 37,000 as per usual is a major support and or resistance channel. It's a level that's a point of contention. So right now, this could essentially, if we continue to build a little bit of a base here, we could see that second shoulder come up and get a second attempt. That's a possibility. But again, it's hard to say specifically exactly what's going to happen. I would say those are one of the two possible scenarios. Should we expect Bitcoin to shoot straight up tomorrow? No. I don't think we're going to expect to see that happen for some time. Again, there's a lot of craziness in the market. We got to kind of respect that and understand that for another month or two, we're probably going to see a lot of nonsense like this. This is pretty standard. There's going to be a few altcoins that take off every once in a while, just little atoms and Tezos that just kind of decide to take off. But for the most part, we can expect more of a bearish continuation, I feel. And now, are we in this cold winter, so to speak, or whatever? What bearish? I forget the term they use, but are we there yet? I don't know. I wouldn't say so until we break 33,000. Probably not. Do we have a potential of hitting 33,000 again? Yes, we do. But we need to see what happens when the price comes down closer to 35,500 first. That's going to be the first major or potential support, in my personal opinion. I think that's the next level we're going to hit. That's the main reason why we have 36,000 as a profit target as a community here for a short position, because of the fact that sometimes putting your stop your profit target rather, right at a major key level, either Fibonacci retracement level or a major support level, is disadvantageous. You want to do just above. So 36,000 is a good number. So if you're going to have a profit target, 36,000 will be ideal. I think we're going to possibly hit that soon. It keeps trying to wick down. And I think there's just much better chance of seeing that. Now let's go ahead and identify that first fall in the 1 hour, because this helps us understand what's going to happen soon. Now we can see with the price kind of coming down here, it came back up to test, now working as a resistance. So we can obviously tell that once this broke, 37,000 is the new resistance, came down, tested again, got rejected. So we're effectively making lower highs and lower lows. At least, one lower low and two lower highs. So that is not ideal in the grand scheme of a turnaround, right? So that's going to translate into our midterm. Our 4 hour chart's going to reflect that as it continues to evolve. So if we continue and kind of just look at this progression here, in fact, why don't we just do one thing here? We're going to look at Ichimoku Cloud and kind of see how much further we can go. So, okay, so here's the good here. For the most part, the good is the fact that the lagging span is coming soon to intersect with price action, right? So another 12 to 24 hours will identify that. That could tell us to close our short position, right? That could be an inclination that that's going to happen. There's also, of course, though, the inverse there, not great news for bulls, if you will, if you're trying to buy low and the price go up, right? Is this the bottom? Probably not, because the short position should remain open considering the conversion line is below the baseline, and we're well out of range of even the cloud itself. So, if you kind of look at this here on the chart, by 11 a.m. tomorrow, roughly 24 hours from now, the price will naturally intersect with the Ichimoku Cloud if it just goes straight sideways from here. But it's making lower highs and lower lows, right? We need to see higher highs and higher lows in order for that transition to occur. So until you can identify higher highs and higher lows in the 1 hour chart, and the Ichimoku Cloud kind of giving us a signal to sell our position because we traveled into the cloud, conversion lines above the baseline, and the lagging span intersect with the price action, there's no reason to close your short position right now, right? And in turn, there's no reason to open a long position because we don't know where the bottom's at yet. Right? So again, you kind of try to remember that lower highs and lower lows on shorter time frames help you identify big picture movements, and we're just seeing this continuation of the downside. It's going to be dead cat after dead cat if it comes back up again. So I just be very cautious in taking a long position at this point. If you're considering a short position, I think it's still viable. I do think 35.5 would be the next available target, or close to that. Maybe do 35.6 to be safe. But generally speaking, at this point, if you have a short position, I recommend keeping it open. We're going to keep ours open as a community. And obviously, if you want to consider, maybe a long position, I would just wait and get some maybe dollar cost average targets in place. 35.5 would be a good DCA target. So at 33,000, because I think we're trending towards that. Bitcoin's giving us no inclination. It wants to turn around at this point. And with us kind of dropping off here with no buying pressure, the price just continued to drop here. That really just tells us that, the bears are in control right now. There's literally no reason to consider the price will turn around. I mean, yes, we're a little outside of the Bollinger Bands there, but honestly, that's already corrected itself, and we don't even need to worry about that. One last thing we could look at would be the 15. We can go ahead and take a quick look at the volume weighted average price and identify prices below the VWAP, and we're still within the standard deviation lines here as well. So all in all, there's no reason for us to expect the price to come back up. Yes, if you were to kind of go on the shorter time frame here, we are technically making higher highs and higher lows on the 15-minute chart, but I don't bother with any type of higher highs and higher lows on a time frame less than 1 hour. And the main reason why is because the smaller time frame you go, the less realistic it is to happen, right? I know it sounds weird, but if you're day trading, obviously, sure, you're buying and selling in a short amount of time, right? These are 15-minute increments. But if you're wanting to see a big picture movement, which is what we're ultimately looking for, is for Bitcoin to go up eventually, really higher highs and higher lows on a 1, 5, or 15-minute chart matters nothing unless you're scalping or day trading on a very short time, right? And majority of my traders and community members, etc., they're taking trades on the holding for 24 to 48, maybe 72 hours. If you're going to do that, you want to consider using the 1 hour chart instead of the 15, because just for example, it's moving a little bit slower, and it's going to give you more relevant results. Again, the larger the time frame, specifically, that's why I look at 1 day candlestick closes. It gives you much more affirmation that you're on the right track, because it gives you a big picture of what happened in that 24-hour period, not just a very short window. It's the same concept of like walking around and like kind of looking and just kind of looking through a microscope, so to speak, or just say you had blinders on like a horse. I know it's a crazy reference, but if you have blinders on everywhere, you're not going to see the big picture, and you're not going to be able to understand all the data. So I always recommend, again, to my community members, even if you're not, look at larger time frames and work your way down. Because if you're only looking at just say a 1 to 15-minute chart and you're day trading, if you don't look at the 1-day chart beforehand and know what the overall movement is doing, the overall sentiment, then you're really doing yourself a disservice. Okay. So again, that's why I try to emphasize 1-day, 4-hour, and 1-hour charts, because they're the most basic, the most easy. I guess you could say most primitive. But if you extract information from each one of them correctly, you can make a very well-rounded decision. Okay, so that's the whole concept. Try to walk away with that thought process there. 15 minutes, all well and good. Don't get me wrong, I day trade with 15-minute all the time. I love it, but it doesn't serve a purpose if you are trying to understand where we're going to go next. In immediate future, 15 minutes telling us, yes, we could see a little bit of an incline, but if we look at the 1 hour, you can obviously tell that we are seeing lower highs, lower lows, and it's struggling to perform right now. 37,000 is a very strong resistance. Okay. Again, most amount of volume accumulation right at that price point. So no surprise. All right. Anyways, hope you learned something here today. If so, comment below. And if not, consider becoming a community member if you are not. Again, CryptoCache.tech. That's the website. Incomplete so far, but it does allow for you to log in to have access to my trading academy. And of course, all my swing trade signals, day trade signals, and private chat groups. So check that out in your own time. Thanks again for your time. We'll see you next one. Have a good rest of your day.